going on, everyone? Welcome to the Cornerstone Worship Podcast. I am your host, Jithin, and joining me today is my very good friend, Thalia,
hey,
co-host as well for the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight.
Of course, it's always a pleasure.
So for tonight's episode, we're going to jump right into it. We want to talk about a topic that we think is very important when it comes to sustaining a worship team, which is adding new members.
Yes, and adding new members to the team, it's super important that we set them up for success.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't want someone to join the team and then completely flop. Like, that's not the point.
Yeah, you don't want them to get upset, and then even adding a new person can, and then they not have a good experience can upset the whole team, change the whole chemistry.
Right.
Even too. So, yeah, let's talk about it.
So we want to start off by talking about meeting them first. I mean, that seems kind of obvious, but there are places where you kind of just you want to join, come on in. So we actually have a process that we've worked through and kind of ironed out as working together over the years. So we start with meeting with the person first, and most of the meetings we usually did it before or after service. Mostly after service. If the person, the congregant is there, whoever wants to join, they have to be a congregant first.
Yeah,
we didn't really let people come in to the worship team that were never, part of the church. I think we've actually had a lot of people who tried to do that too.
Yeah, just showed up the week of, or maybe 2 weeks in a row. They're like, oh, I want to join.
Yeah, and that's not a good sign. You want the person to be a part of the church, love the church, and it's just an expansion and the growth of their spirit at the church as well as joining the worship team, So we definitely want to make sure that we're helping to grow someone that is planting roots in the church.
Yeah, of course.
So that was one of the parts. We speak to them, have a meeting with them, we talk on the phone with them, get to know them a little bit more. You don't want to not know the person either. Like you said, you're going to have the person join the team.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, even with that, it's it's so important to connect with them even outside of the Sunday service, because you as a worship leader, you probably are thinking of the set list, who's there, who's not there, the countdown's going on. It's not really the proper way or the effective way to talk to somebody. So again, I think the best thing is just grab that contact information, 100%. Say thank you so much for being interested. Let me get your name and your number, and let's find a time to talk during the week, or I'll reach out to you. And
before that, we actually even had them fill out an application to bring to the meeting. So hey, we'll definitely reach out to you, but in the meantime, do you mind filling this out for us? So give us more information on what you're doing out. We reviewed it, and then we'd set the meeting up with them. So we kind of it is like an interview process. You know?
No, of course.
Of course, it's not a job, but we want to make sure that we have people that have the right heart and mindset to join the team.
And also skill set, because I think that's huge too. Well, we'll get into that.
Yes. Well, I think we can jump to the next part, only because I think that's a big part of them in the process of it all. Yeah,
of course. And it's even something we've done as well prior to setting the time meeting them was what I'm doing now at the church I'm at currently is I send a playlist of the songs that we're currently listening to, because everybody comes from different backgrounds. I mean, somebody might be coming from a Baptist church or independent church, and maybe even a cultural church, and they don't do the same songs that we're doing now. So I say, hey, listen, in between our meetings, why don't you listen to these songs just to get you familiarized, because every Sunday we aim to at least do new songs or different songs, on a rotation. And so at least I'll give them a little grasp.
We always had those ones that we just couldn't let go of.
Yeah, that is definitely true. So then the second thing, which is sometimes I've talked to other worship leaders too, which is maybe not controversial, but a talking point is if you should do a tryout or not. And to me personally, I've always thought that tryouts aren't a bad thing, because I think it's good to understand or to level set what the skill set this person is coming in.
Right.
I've seen people who have, for instance, tried out or I said they were interested in the worship team and say, okay, what instrument is this? Oh, I've been playing the bass. I've been playing the bass for the last 20 years. Once you finally meet them and understand, hey, they've been playing the bass for 20 years, but they only know how to play the bass in certain types of music or maybe in certain keys. I can only play in C and G. And then So that might not work for the dynamic, or maybe that's a growing point. You're going to be like, hey, listen, maybe you can't join yet. Why don't you work on getting these things? But trying out and seeing these things beforehand is huge. So, it gives you a chance and opportunity to understand, hey, what are they at?
Like with singers too, you want to make sure, can this person do harmonies? And I guess set them for that. Or am I going to set them they're going to be on the melody, and then we're going to learn how to do harmonies from there. So it's always, you want to cultivate that person, have them grow as well, but you need a starting point. So tryouts are a great way to find out where that person is starting off at.
Yeah. And so strategy that I've seen to work out for us is that I'd ask them to come prepared with 2 songs. One song being a song that they're comfortable with. They know, off the back of their hand, like something they can really, not exactly perform well, but something that they're comfortable singing. Just so you can understand what their range is, what songs they're into, how is their vocal range, how is their musicality, and things like that. And the second thing I ask is to prepare a song that we at the church do often. So they can see, we can also understand and see how they can gel or how they can work in terms of the songs that we're currently doing, maybe based on their background, whether it being very similar or very, very different. And so having them coming prepared with those 2 songs, and me as a musician, I try to play along with them so they don't feel, naked or exposed in the sense of like having to like I'm Simon Cowell at American Idol, right?
Don't want it to be awkward either.
Yeah, it's not. That's not the purpose. The purpose is really just to understand like where they're at and what skill set and what level they are at, because everyone is so different. Depending on their musical background, some people are classically trained, some people are YouTube trained, which is nothing wrong with either one. I feel like I'm a mix of both YouTube, and I've taken some classical lessons as a kid, and so. Understanding, what they're able to do, and if they know numbers, and if they are able to key change and modulate, and having that experience and exposure prior to adding them onto the team and understanding that, I think is huge.
100%. This is good.
So, and then after that, I think the last thing we really want to do on the process of onboarding is really just teaching them the expectations of our team. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, but the culture of your team is different.
Yes.
I feel like with people on the worship team, there's 90% of them are coming from a different church or maybe a different background, right, that are joining on. And so understanding, hey, like, your church might have done it this way, but this is how we do it, and making sure they're understanding that first. I feel like that will, remove some tension. And not to say that, another church does things better than ours and they can maybe introduce that later, but as of right now, this is how we do things. And so making sure they understand that too. Another thing that we've talked about also is just understanding the timeliness of being at practice and how important practice and sound checks are too.
Reiterating that.
And reiterating that, from the beginning. So it's not like an afterthought, like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you we practice, Thursdays. And also understanding their schedule too. Maybe like, for instance, they can't, if you practice on Thursdays at 8:00 and they're like, oh, I work every Thursday night. Maybe that's something that you could say like, hey, that might not work for now, but we'll pray that, situations change in your job or in your family or things like that. And those things happen.
Yeah.
I know there was one person on a previous worship team, he was working nights, and so he couldn't join initially. He was coming, right before his night shift just to acclimate himself to the worship team. A month or two later, he's like, hey, listen, I just got a promotion. I'm working days now. I can really commit to the worship team. And now we added him, once or twice a month. That's just like,
even myself, I used to not be able to do Wednesday night services, and I was able to switch the late nights to Monday nights instead, and so then I was able to start the Wednesday night. So you really don't know until that person really gets into the team. Yeah.
So just to recap, the first thing I think is definitely important, which is to meet with them first.
Right.
Grab their information as they come up to you, say, hey, I'm interested in the worship team. Give them a call and say like, hey, let's set a time for us to meet and get to know each other. And then through that, do a tryout. There's nothing, it might initially sound awkward to do, but I think you as a worship leader, as a music director, it's really important to get that level set of where their skill level is. And so maybe you can encourage them like, hey, listen, in between now and once you join the worship team, I really want you to work on your breathing. I really want you to work on playing in these keys, because these keys are more popular that we play at church versus these other keys. and things like that. And so understanding that, and then also setting those expectations is huge. A couple of like little nuggets that we've been able to benefit from is like sometimes our churches had like midweek services.
Right.
You know, they had a youth service, a young adult service, midweek prayer service, and so maybe that's somewhere. For instance, if somebody's like not ready to be fully on a Sunday doing multiple services, you can start there,
Right.
Get their feet wet, understand the process, and hopefully your midweek services and your young adult and youth services follow the same culture and the same format,
Right.
so they can understand how to
process
acclimate
of it.
themselves once they get up to a Sunday.
I think those were also opportunities to implement some growth where a lot of the singers, we were able to, hey, why don't you try to sing this song on your own or be able to do that for people on the team already. But
Yeah, of course.
Wednesday nights and midweek services are a great opportunity for growth in the worship team. So that's a great, like you said, great place to start for a new member on the team.
Yeah. And then also, even before they join the team, invite them to come out to a practice. Invite them to come out to a sound check so they can understand, hey, listen, this is, if we're practicing for an hour and a half, this is how we set up. This is how we load in. This is how we practice through a song.
Right.
Every church practices through songs and records songs. You know, sometimes they record snippets so they can send, and we've talked about that too, recording snippets of either an audio or a vocal part or a music part so we can send it out. So just understanding those stylistic things too. And then also, lastly, I think as a leader, I think it's super important for you to be engaging and forward in terms of introducing that person to the team because you don't want them to feel awkward. You don't want them to feel like a new person. Thing actually I've been doing at the church I'm at now is that every week we have like a new rotation of people, which is great. So even before the practice starts, I go down the list and name everyone from the sound people to the people who are playing to the people who are singing to the people in the back in our live stream studio. I want everybody to know at least their name, because I feel like once you at least know somebody's name, it's not like, hey,
or it's not like separate. It's not like that's the sound and that's the
exactly.
and that's that.
And it just brings a little bit more camaraderie to the team. It helps people understand. Maybe even it'll help break that ice for someone, right? Because at least I know your name, and that'd be like, oh, your name's Rob. That's cool. Where do you live? And then that just brings that, just the ability for you guys to gel. And so you as a worship leader, as music director, really push and be on the forefront of introducing the new person to, even if they're shadowing, just let them understand, or let them feel welcome to the process.
Join the family.
Yeah, exactly.
Some other tools that we definitely wanted to introduce to those new members too is Planning Center. Let them get the app, download it onto their phone.
Yeah.
This will be where you get all your information. Just like we would introduce them to group text as far as like what what the plan is, and let them know what's going on.
Yeah.
Keep them posted.
Yeah. So for the church I'm at now, we have like a group text with just the band members. So I'll add them on to that contact list and be like, hey, listen, any updates for the band? I'm going to make sure that you're on that so that you are part of the team and they feel included once they've officially been on board to the team.
Joined in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Hopefully this podcast is encouraging. New members are great, and it's great to see growth, because adding new people into your team shows not only growth in your team but also growth in the church. But we want to make sure that we set them up for success by meeting with them, letting them understand what's going on, understanding them too as an individual. Maybe they have different responsibilities personally within their families or professionally in their work or even inside the church. Understanding who they are before you add them onto the team, setting it up with the right foundations, the right culture, and trying them out. See if they got the chops.
And where they start at.
Exactly. Cool.
All right, guys.
All right. Well, thanks very much for joining, and we'll see you next episode.
All right. Good.
Take care.